Now we'll go to the fourth one, the agreements which are void and under what conditions such agreements are void, and that is regarding champerty. So any legal or financial or both help to recover property of another, and after recovering that property 20% of share, and for such a case is being filed by the party must be bona fide in nature, and the party must have reasonable claim, but if not reasonable, and if it is a kind of false charges and just to annoy another party, or malified in nature of the intention of filing such case to recover such property and to claim any percentage out of that recovery would be considered as champerty, and any such demand from such share, from such property would be considered as malified, and such agreement would be void. And regarding maintenance, any such agreement, that maintenance may not be demand any share, then from that property, then it would be bona fide. But if there would be any malified intention regarding maintenance, and that demand of maintenance from any share, from any property, would be held as unreasonable, and such agreements would be held void. And our fifth one is regarding sale and trafficking on public office and title. So, regarding sale and trafficking in public offices and title, such as government jobs, or the titles like Padma Shri or Padma Bhushan and Padma Vibhushan, are considered as void agreements, so giving bribe to senior officers by the junior to retire so that he could be promoted to the said post, it would be considered as sale and trafficking in public office, and such agreement would be held void. Offering certain gain to members of parliament or central ministers, so to be selected for the Padma Awards by the central government, would be considered also as void, and such agreements of such person would be considered as agreements which are declared void on the basis of sale and trafficking in public offices and titles. So our next one is agreements to create monopoly. So any municipality giving license to sell vegetables and fruits exclusively to a particular person in a market complex. For example, if the CDA authorities in sector 6, 7 and 8 issues a particular license to a particular vegetable and fruits vendor to sell in all these sectors, it would be considered as an agreement to create monopoly, and such agreement would be held void. So also, our next one is agreements regarding marriage brokerage agreement. And here, all those agreements would be held void. So, for example, convincing someone to marry a particular groom or bride would be held as void agreement. But this very clause opposed to public policy would not be applicable to those like the Shadi.com or matrimony.coms, etc., which are operating on the internet, and such are not marriage brokerage agreements, but any individual convincing someone to marry someone or to a particular groom or bride would be considered as marriage brokerage agreement. And our next one is such as interest against obligation. So, government tenders given to a particular contractor out of a group of contractors by the concerned official, and it would be held as an agreement against the interest of the obligation imposed on government officials, and such agreements would be held as void. So also, the tender on building a warehouse of the Food Corporation of India at certain place. For example, at Cuttack, no applicants are of, and the secretary allotted it to a particular person, a contractor, even who is bidding of higher rates, and such agreement would be held as interest against obligation, as particularly the very public official who finalized the very tender on the building of the warehouse to a particular contractor, even if he is bidding at high rate, is against the obligation imposed by law, and such would be held as interest against obligation, and such agreement would be held liable. And our next one is that agreement which is lawful in one part and unlawful in another part would be held as void. So, for example, A engaged B in business of selling electronics parts and drugs business on a salary of Rs 1 lakh, and out of which 40,000 for electronics he would get per month, and for the other part which is regarding selling the drugs, rupees 60,000. So, in this agreement, one part is lawful, that is selling of electronics item and receiving rupees 40,000 for that is valid, while regarding selling of drugs for which he will get rupees 60,000, and of that business, that part is void. So in this agreement, one part is lawful and the second part is unlawful. So such agreements met, it could be separated, and if it could not be separated, then the whole agreement is void. For example, A engaged B on supply of rice and opium. Salary of rupees 1 lakh would be given for month, as it could not be separated. Exactly for what amount he would get for supplying of rice and for supplying of opium. So the whole agreement is void. So such agreements are as could not be separated. So which part is lawful and which part is unlawful, it could not be determined. So the entire agreement is void. And our last regarding opposed to public policy is agreement to payment of less salary. So for example, the secretary cum chief engineer versus Hari Om Sharma and others, a leading case of 1998, the Supreme Court hold that the post of junior or engineer or the state gap arrangement made by the government, and that agreement not claim higher salary, but it would be contrary to laws and to against public policy. So any such agreements which are made regarding any post, and for that if the salary would be paid less, and if that agreement would be finalized, whether it is by the government or by any private individual or any private person, and if that agreement is regarding payment of less salary, then it would be held as against public policy.